Hello, I'm Neil, and welcome back to Parallax Retros, where we'll be discussing what works well and not so well with Cannon Fodder for the Amiga, exploring the game's development and the people and ideas behind it. Cannon Fodder isn't a game I played back in the 90s on release, and wasn't even on my radar growing up. So, based on its critical acclaim and fondness by fans, I am curious to see if it still holds up today. So let's take a retrospective look and find out if war really has never been so much fun. Cannon Fodder, released in 1993 by Sensible Software, is a tactical shoot-'em-up for the Commodore Amiga. Missions are split into several levels where the player conducts a squad of troops in warfare, with the objective of most missions being to destroy buildings and kill enemies whilst trying to prevent your troops from dying. John Hare, the game's designer, has previously disclosed that the game was not planned meticulously from the start. Instead, it was a near flawless example of iterative development. The initial brief was simple, to create a sort of Rambo game with a troop element. There was no massive design document, with development starting with just a couple of pages of notes and sketches on pencil and paper. The team avoided traditional storyboarding, instead choosing to plot levels on graph paper and experiment with game mechanics as they went. John Hare felt that the game's success came from being ruthless about editing the crap out and manipulating ideas until they worked. The game's most iconic feature, Boot Hill, serves as a primary example of this iterative design process. What began as a simple recruitment hut between levels underwent a significant transformation when the team decided to display the names of every soldier lost in the previous mission to illustrate the waste of war. To deepen the emotional connection, the developers made the list of the dead unskippable, forcing players to acknowledge the human cost of their actions. This evolution culminated in the addition of visuals gravestones that populated the hillside, and by later levels, the sight of a landscape covered in crosses transformed the screen into a powerful and haunting anti-war statement. Sensible Software aimed to create a strategy game that felt fun and accessible by implementing a highly refined interface. The development team spent a significant amount of time on the game's control scheme that relied solely on the two-button Amiga tank mouse to manage movement, shooting, vehicles, and squad splitting. The team implemented a pathfinding system, allowing the software to remember a sequence of clicks so that soldiers could follow paths as determined by the player. Early design plans included specialised soldier roles, such as dedicated helicopter pilots. However, they were ultimately discarded in favour of keeping the gameplay simpler and intuitive. Designer John Hare's ambition was to implement an elegant learning curve that introduced complexity to the player at a gradual pace. This was managed through a block system, where each new set of missions debuted a specific new element, such as grenades, rocket launchers, tanks, or helicopters. One of the themes that we keep coming back to on this channel is innovation through limitation. Artist Stuart Stu Cambridge worked within a strict 16 colour limit, a constraint that forced the team to scrutinise every single pixel of the animation. Because every pixel was slaved over, the team felt that the tiny animations of soldiers bleeding out or triggering booby traps felt remarkably agonising and impactful to the player despite their small size. The development team made use of the game's score in an attempt to set the emotional tone of the game, including the sad recruitment music, which was an instrumental version of a song John Hare wrote at age 18 after his first breakup. In contrast, the jaunty ska main theme, War Has Never Been So Much Fun, utilised dark irony to set the tone for the gameplay. Despite receiving high-scoring reviews, the game faced significant external pressure during its release. The Poppy row erupted when Sensible Software featured the Remembrance Poppy on the game's box art and scheduled a Remembrance Day release to underscore the anti-war message a move that the Royal British Legion strongly opposed on both moral and copyright grounds. The controversy was quickly weaponised by the British tabloid press, most notably the Daily Star, which labelled the game as an insult to veterans due to the dark irony of its "war has never been so much fun" tagline. Under intense pressure, publisher Virgin Interactive was forced to strip the Poppy from all physical packaging and pay a £500 for copyright infringement. While the symbol remained in the game's digital intro alongside a mandatory disclaimer of non-endorsement, the ordeal left a bitter legacy. John Hare famously noted his lasting resentment towards the Legion, feeling they had fundamentally misunderstood the game's satirical intent. Now let's take a retrospective look at the game. The introduction cutscene features the game's development team dressed in military uniforms, starring as historic and fictional characters such as Elvis. The music utilised features lyrics joking about war being so much fun and killing your brother in the sun, referring to a mechanic of killing a wounded comrade in-game, which, stating out of context, feels quite dark and bleak, but somehow works well in practice at setting the tone for the game and poking fun at the tragedy of war. The development team actually filmed a full video which in more recent years has been uploaded to YouTube. This continues the same themes with the developers in full military uniform acting out absurd death scenes after being shot by their fellow developers. It feels heavily inspired by Blackadder Goes Forth, another piece of media that utilised humour to highlight the misfortunes of war. Once the game has booted up, you're presented with the Boot Hill menu screen, which acts as a hub of sorts for you to load and save games, review your current squad and the heroes that have perished along the course of your game time. The sensible team's roots in football are also ever present, displaying counts of kills for both the home, heroes, and away, enemies, teams. Later on in the game, the hill starts to fill with the gravestones of deceased comrades, which does make you take note of the many lives you have lost until this point. This, combined with each squad member having a unique name, works well at evoking feelings of loss for these tiny pixelated troops who have died for you in the line of duty. On starting a level, you are presented with the mission briefing that is usually to kill all enemies and or destroy enemy buildings. Occasionally there are other stipulations, such as saving all civilian lives. I found myself relying on the map to determine where I was and the possible locations of my objectives. The map was adequate at giving you an idea of where you were in the sandbox you'd been dropped into, but not always 100% useful at identifying enemy and building locations. This then was down to you as a player to explore the map and through trial and error determine enemy locations and eliminate them. This is where the game's controls come into play, which predominantly utilise the Amiga mouse. A left click moves the troops to the cursor's location, a right click will make the troops shoot at the cursor, and holding right click and then clicking left will throw a grenade or shoot an RPG at the cursor. Your squad can be split into separate groups by clicking on one or more names on the top left corner of the screen where your squad is listed and splitting them into separate groups. This gameplay loop, which in the first 4 missions gradually becomes more challenging, works well, encouraging you to form strategies for taking out enemies and buildings across the map, ensuring you plan routes carefully, such as shorter routes through water where you are vulnerable, and devising tactics for the different types of enemies. I found that the game is very much a matter of trial and error. Most levels involve you exploring the map on your first run or two, knowing you will likely die before figuring out where all the different buildings and enemy types are. And then on your 3rd or 4th runs, you are devising strategies for dealing with these enemies. For example, a lone trooper running straight at an enemy with an RPG can move faster than they can shoot. Whereas if you move your entire squad together, they are much slower, so are more likely to die from a stray grenade. This is where splitting the squad, and importantly your resources, can be of strategic significance. Do you split your grenades and RPGs evenly between your 2 teams? Or do you hunker one team down with all of your munitions, keeping your resources safe? The game works well at making use of different biomes: jungle, arctic, desert, moorlands, and the underground base, which factor into your strategies. For example, the deep waters of the jungle prevent your troops from shooting while they swim slowly, vulnerable to enemy fire, and navigating your troops around quicksand is critical, else risks them meeting an early demise. The art in this game is outstanding, given that they were limited to 16 colours on screen at a time, with each biome feeling truly distinct, with unique building structures, civilian sprites and enemies. This works well. On the 5th mission, the game difficulty ramps up quickly. This is where I felt like the level of challenge was too much too soon, working not so well. I would have preferred the gradual curve to continue from the first 4 missions, but instead, missions can often end abruptly through the smallest of mistakes, making it feel quite punishing at times. Having said that, when you do eventually overcome these challenges, it does feel earned and rewarding, with replays becoming easier with the foresight of enemy locations and movements. The game's save feature works well at softening this blow somewhat, allowing you to save and load between missions. The controls work well overall on the mouse. I can't imagine this game being controlled any other way, and I imagine a joypad being too slow at how quick you need to react in this game. The pathfinding itself works not so well. While impressive as a concept for a game of this era, I would find my characters regularly getting stuck on terrain or confused when attempting to pathfind around buildings. You can work around this for sure, but on occasion it caused some frustration involving mission failures. Later on in the game, you use these same mouse controls for manoeuvring vehicles, involving the necessity of moving the vehicles at high speeds to clear rivers or obstacles. This specific use of the mouse control works not so well here, as it can be difficult to control the vehicles at faster speeds, and with your entire squad often needing to be fully loaded into the vehicle, a mistake leads to the vehicle being destroyed and a frustrating mission failure. One neat feature that works well is your character's ability to rank up, which they will do on successfully completing and surviving a level. Whilst not explicit in the manual, the higher ranks appear to afford the troops with superior fire rates and range. The game's music works well at setting the tone depending on the stages of the gameplay loop you're at, with jovial upbeat music for mission completes, along with more sombre compositions for memorialising the troops lost on missions. To conclude, I feel that Cannon Fodder succeeds at delivering its fun and accessible mission statement that the game was designed to deliver. The mouse controls keep movement simple and easy to pick up and play. The sharp difficulty curve forces you to slow down and learn maps thoroughly, forming strategies to ensure your troops survive enemy encounters and collect enough resources to complete missions. Occasional random and punishing game mechanics aside, I enjoyed my time with this game, although the sharp difficulty level of Mission 7 will probably mean I won't continue much further into this game. For those seeking a tough, challenging game though, this game holds up well. What are your retrospections of Cannon Fodder? Did you play the game back in the 90s and have you revisited it since? Please share in the comments below and let's continue the discussion. This has been a Parallax retrospective. Thank you for watching.